So welcome students, welcome to lecture number 19 of module 3, income under heads, profits and gains from business and profession, of the subject direct taxation. So module 3, as we know, covers computation of income from PGBP. PGBP stands for profits and gains from business and profession. Basic methods of accounting, scheme of business deductions and allowances, which is very, very important, which is going to help us in solving the problems, deemed profits, maintenance of books and depreciation. All these we have covered in this respective lecture numbers. So we are only left with problems on computation of income from business and profession of individual SSC and depreciation. So today we will be seeing few problems on computation of income from business and profession. Relating to the problems on depreciation will be solving in the succeeding lectures. So before we begin with solving the problems, let us first understand the format in which we are supposed to solve the problems on profits and gains from business and profession. So always we begin with the problem by taking the net profit as per the statement of profit and loss account. Everyone knows what is a profit and loss account, which shows all the expenses and all the incomes, okay, of a particular SSC. And after we deduct the incomes from the expenditures, we get the net profit or net loss. So always we have to start the problem with the net profit as per the statement of P&L account. To that we have to add all the expenses which are debited, which are actually debited to the P&L account, but as per the Income Tax Act or as per the provisions of PGBP, they are not allowed to be deducted. So we are adding it back. Then less all the expenditures which are actually allowed to be deducted, actually they had to be debited to the P&L account, but they have not been debited. Then we have to deduct all the incomes which are not taxable under this particular head. If they are taxable under the head of suppose capital gains or under the head of house property or under the head of income from other sources, they have to be deducted, because here we are only computing the profits and gains from business or profession. Next, we need to add deemed income. Deemed income means which is not income, a regular income, but which we have considered as a income which we are not going to receive at all, and we receive it subsequently. Those becomes our deemed income. It is not a source of a regular income. So all the deemed income has to be added. Later, whatever remains, we get profits and gains from business or profession, and on this profit or on this income or on this gain, we are going to charge the income tax that has to be paid by the SSC carrying out business or profession. Now, before we start solving the problems, I just want to take you all through one particular adjustment, that is undervaluation. Sorry students, before I begin with the problems, I would just like to take you all towards a particular adjustment of undervaluation and overvaluation of stock, which is most likely asked in the exam. So this is from the problem solving perspective. Now, what is stock? Everyone knows that stock is nothing but the unsold goods. Like if any person is into the business of trading of goods, so whatever goods are unsold, they become the stock. Now, we know that business have two types of stock: opening stock, which is nothing but the stock as on the beginning of a financial year, and closing stock is the stock remaining at the end of the financial year. So we know that there are two types of stock: opening and closing stock. Now, what do you mean by undervaluation of stock? Suppose a particular business has a stock of 10,000 rupees, has an opening stock of 10,000 rupees, but while debiting that opening stock to the P&L account, I have undervalued it and I have shown it at 9,000 rupees. Actually, the stock value is 10,000, but while recording it in the P&L account, we have recorded at 9,000. So what is happening? It is undervalued. Actually, the value is 10,000, but you're valuing it at 9,000 and showing in the books at 9,000. So it is called undervaluation of stock. So when you're valuing the stock below its actual value, then it is called undervaluation of stock. Now, what is overvaluation of stock? Totally opposite of undervaluation. Suppose the stock value is 10,000, but suppose it is an opening stock. So while debiting it to the P&L account, you're showing it at 11,000. So you're overvaluing the stock. Overvaluation of stock means where you're showing the value of stock more than its actual value. Over and above its actual value, if you're showing the value of the stock in the books of accounts, that is in the P&L account, then it is called overvaluation of stock. Now, can anyone tell me, opening stock, is it shown at the debit side of the P&L account or credit side of the P&L account? Trading account, I mean. So can any student tell me, opening stock is shown on which side of P&L account? Is it shown on the debit side or is it shown on the credit side of P&L account?
Debit side.
Debit side.
Debit side of the P&L account.
Okay, so you all know that opening stock is shown on the debit side and closing stock is shown on the
Credit side.
Credit.
Okay, very good. Now my next question to you all is, opening stock is added to the income, it forms a part of an income, or it forms part of an expenditure since it is on the debit side? Like while calculating net profit.
Income.
Are you all sure? See, while calculating the net profit, okay, all the expenses are on the debit side, correct? And all the incomes are on the credit side, correct? Now you all said opening stock comes on the debit side. Means while calculating net profit, you deduct that particular opening stock value. Yes, students, are you understanding? And on the credit side, you have closing stock. So when you are taking the total of the income, you are going to add the opening stock value in order to derive the net profit. So opening stock forms part of your expenses and closing stock form parts of your income while deriving at the net profit. Is this clear? Are you all getting it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So now, suppose if there is an undervaluation or overvaluation of a stock, now what is the adjustment or treatment you need to give? Before I show you all what is the solution, it is very simple. I want you all to answer it. Okay. Students, suppose if actual value of the stock should have been 10,000 of opening stock I'm talking about. It had to be 10,000, but I'm showing it at 9,000. Okay. So is it called undervaluation or overvaluation of opening stock?
Undervalued.
Everyone agrees? Okay. Now, if my opening stock is undervalued, it is undervalued by how much amount? 1,000 rupees. Correct? Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, what effect will it have on the profit and loss account? Now, this I have to always show my books of accounts in its correct actual value. Now, since it is undervalued by 1,000 rupees, I have to give the treatment of this 1,000 rupees, right? So should I add this 1,000 rupees to the net profit or should I deduct this 1,000 rupees to the net profit? Students, I have to deduct this 1,000 rupees. No, actually I had to deduct 10,000 to derive at the net profit, but I deducted only 9,000. So 1,000 rupees, in order to come to the actual value, I have to deduct 1,000 rupees from the net profit whenever my stock is undervalued in case of opening stock. Are you all understanding? Since opening stock comes on the debit side. Are you all getting it, students? Now suppose my opening stock actual value, always books has to show actual value. My opening stock, okay, in the books actually should have been 10,000, but I have shown it at 11,000. By showing it at 11,000, my net profit has decreased, correct? If my net profit has decreased by 1,000 rupees, then in order to derive at the correct net profit, I have to add this 1,000 rupees back to the net profit because my opening stock is overvalued. So let us just understand this. See, whenever my opening stock is undervalued, what effect I'm going to give it to the net profit? I'm always going to deduct that much amount by which it is undervalued. I'm going to deduct it from the net profit. Whenever my opening stock is overvalued, by the amount it is overvalued, I am going to add that much amount to the net profit. Similarly, when my closing stock is undervalued, by the amount that it is undervalued, I'm going to add it to the net profit. Similarly, if my closing stock is overvalued, by the amount that it is overvalued, I will deduct it from the net profit. So have you all understood the logic of this? Why we are deducting, why we are adding? Simply because opening stock comes on the debit side, closing stock comes on the credit side of P&L account. Now, if our stock is showing less, if our opening stock is showing less, if it is undervalued, then the value by which it is undervalued, it has to be deducted, right, in order to derive at the actual value. Suppose if opening stock, again repeating the same example so that you'll understand, if the opening stock is 10,000 rupees, but I'm showing it at 9,000 rupees. Actually, I could have deducted 10,000, but I'm deducting 9,000. Means I have to again deduct how much? 1,000 rupees. So that is why it has to be deducted. Are you all understanding? Yes, students?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, how will you know by what amount should I add it or deduct it? Okay, because in the exam, they will give you percentage, like the stock is undervalued by 10% or the stock is overvalued by 15%. Then how will you remove the amount that you have to add or the amount that you have to deduct? So there is a formula. So first, actual value of the stock. First, if in the exam it is given that the stock is overvalued or undervalued, your first step will be you have to remove what is the actual value of that stock. So how are you going to find out the actual value of the stock? You take the value of stock that is given in the P&L into 100 divided by 100 minus rate of undervaluation. This formula you are supposed to use when in the problem it is given that the stock is undervalued. Now you'll know what is the meaning of undervalued. Similarly, if the stock is overvalued, in order to know what is the actual value of the stock, you need to use this formula, value of stock into 100 divided by 100 plus. If it is overvaluation, you have to use plus symbol in the formula, plus rate of overvaluation. The rate of undervaluation or overvaluation will be given in the problem. Now, once you have got the actual value of stock, then you will easily find out by how much it is undervalued by multiplying the actual value of stock into the rate of undervaluation. And in case of overvaluation of stock, once you know what is the actual value of stock, you have to multiply it with the rate of overvaluation in order to get the amount by which the stock is overvalued. So students, this is the formula which you have to use in order to know what is the actual value of the stock. Suppose if they are given just the stock is 9,000 rupees, it is overvalued by 10%. How will you know what is the actual value of the stock? So use this formula of overvaluation, you will get the actual value of stock. To the actual value of stock, you have to multiply the rate of overvaluation. Then you will get the amount which has to be added to the net profit or deducted to the net profit. So this you will understand better when we practically implement whatever we have studied in this slide in the problems. So remember this formula, students. Next, before beginning with the problems, this section number 30 to 43D, which we have already covered in our lecture number 17, is very, very important, because from section 30 to 37, it will help us know that these are allowable deductions, these are allowable expenditures, which you can debit it in the P&L account and take the benefit of it. Section 40 will tell us that even if they are debited in P&L account, you will not get an deduction of it, so you have to add it back. Then payments and expenses that are deductible in certain circumstances, that if the conditions fulfill, then only you can take the benefit of it. Profit chargeable to tax is nothing but deemed profit. So you should know all the different deemed profits which has to be added to the net profit, and other provisions, that is certain expenses are deductible only on payment basis, cash payment basis. So students, these provisions which we have already covered, these are very, very important to solve any problem on profits and gains from business and profession. So in nutshell, if we see, we'll just have a quick recap of the provisions before we start solving the problems. So items that should be debited to P&L account, and this I'm talking only in respect of calculating income from the head, profits and gains from business or profession. So when we are calculating profits and gains from business or profession, the items that should be debited to P&L account are all those expenses. You know clearly that on the debit side we have all the expenses, and on the credit side we have all the incomes. So all the expenses which are allowed under the Act. So as per the provisions of from section number 30 to 43B, whatever expenses are allowed, you can debit it. Second, expenses relating to previous year only. Previous year only, why? Because income in the previous year will be assessed to tax in the assessment year. So whatever is the assessment year, immediately preceding that, whatever is the previous year, only the incomes, the expenses in those previous years will be allowed to be debited. You cannot debit any expenditures which is incurred many years back and which is not in the previous year. Okay, so expenses relating to previous year only should be debited. Allowed revenue expenses only revenue expenses should be debited, that is expenses relating to the day-to-day trading of day-to-day in relation to the carrying out the business or profession. Whatever expenses you are incurring which is in revenue in nature, that only should be debited. And only trading losses should be debited. Trading losses is the business losses. You cannot deduct any other loss from capital gains. You cannot debit it in the business and profession. So keep in mind, this is very important in solving problems. What all items should be debited to the P&L account? Whatever expenses are allowed under the Act from section number 30 to 43B, which we have seen in the previous slide. All the expenses of the previous year only, all the revenue expenses, and only the trading losses. Trading losses means business losses. You cannot debit any other head loss under this head. Next, items that should be credited to P&L account is all incomes taxable under this head. That is, all the business incomes should be credited to the P&L account. Incomes relating to previous year only. Okay, all revenue incomes only. See, capital incomes, capital expenditure should not be debited or credited. Then incomes which have been accrued, arisen, received, and ignored. And ignored means certain incomes were accrued or were outstanding, but they have been ignored in showing in the books of accounts. Then you have to include those incomes also. Now, By this, what do we understand? What has to be debited and what has to be credited. Now, what are the items which neither should be debited or nor should be credited to P&L account? So coming towards the expenses, all those items which are not allowed as per the act, we are not supposed to debit it. All items which are disallowed as per act, we are not supposed to debit it. All items which are not relating to previous year, we cannot debit it. If they are not relating to business or profession, we are not allowed to debit it. All the capital expenditures, personal expenditures, or other losses other than business losses, we are not allowed to debit it to the P&L account. And incomes, in incomes, what are we not supposed to credit? Whichever is not in the nature of capital, whichever is not in the revenue nature, we are not supposed to credit it. And which are not taxable under the head business or profession, we are not supposed to credit it. So after making all these adjustments, we know what has to be debited, we know what has to be credited. We have to only consider this, and whatever is either debited or credited wrongly, we have to rectify that and derive at the correct profits and gains from business or profession. So that is all what we are going to do while solving the problems. We are going to derive at the correct profits and gains from business or profession by giving treatment to all this. So let us see problems on computation of income from business and profession. Okay. Following is the profit and loss account of Miss Divya for the year ending 31/3/2020. Okay, so this is a profit and loss account. Now tell me, students, on the debit side is always on your left hand side and credit side is always on your right hand side, correct? So all these are your expenses and all these are your incomes. So what did I tell you all? That we have to scan the profit and loss account, and whichever item is wrongly debited or wrongly credited, we have to give a correct treatment of that. So students, tell me, salaries. Unless and until there is some additional information given about salaries, okay, then we can take a call whether salaries should be actually debited or not. So tell me, salaries, is it an allowable expenditure of business? Is it a business expenditure? Salaries. Students, I want it to be an interactive session because this is very easy.
Yes, ma'am.
Provided. Okay. So very good, salaries and allowable expenditures. Let us see if any additional information about salary is given. If it is given, whether it is allowed, not allowed, we will take a call later. So see our additional information. Do we have an additional information about salaries? Yes. Point number 2. Salaries include 6,000 paid to workers employed at home. So if I'm employing some work, Miss Divya is employing some workers at home. She's out of this 1,65,000. 6,000 is paid to workers employed at home. So tell me, students, whether entire 1,65,000 will be allowed as a business expenditure, yes or no? Few minutes back, we have seen that any personal expenditure will not be allowed to be debited to the P&L account. Yes or no, students? So if he's paying 6,000 to workers employed at home, means it becomes domestic help, correct? It becomes a personal expenditure. Then how can we allow this entire 1,65,000 to be debited to the P&L account? So how much we have to give effect to this? Out of 1,65,000, 6,000 is relating to personal expenditure, which will be disallowed, which will not be allowed to be debited to the P&L account. So how much will be allowed? Only 1,59,000. Did you all understand the adjustment or the treatment of salaries?
Yes, ma'am.
So in our format, we have, first we have to take net profit as per P&L account, that is 34,000. Where we have got this, always net profit is shown here, that is incomes minus expenditure, so it comes on the debit side. So 34,000 we have taken as it is. Then as per the format, what we are supposed to do, add expenditures disallowed but debited in P&L account. So the first one is salaries paid to servant employed at home. So actually this is debited to P&L account, but it is disallowed as per the answers given by you all only. So 6,000 I am adding it back. So our salary treatment is completed. So this we have given effect. So line by line we have to see each item. We have to analyze and understand whether it is allowed or disallowed and check that particular item whether it is given in additional information. Okay, next, to office expenses 18,000. Whether it is an allowable expenditures or disallowable expenditures. Students, tell me.
Allowable expenses.
Okay, but we will also see whether in additional information some information about office expenses given, so that we don't go wrong while solving the problem. So here, no, your legal expenses, the salaries we have been done, general expenses. So okay, so 18,000 is allowable. So will it have any effect in the answer? Are we supposed to give any treatment to the net profit? No, because already 18,000 is deducted. So there will be no particular adjustment for this 18,000. What is the reason behind that? Because it is 100% allowable expenditure. Clear, students? Okay. Next, depreciation. Is depreciation an allowable expenditure or disallowable expenditure? Obviously, students, depreciation we have done in the previous class itself. Depreciation, will a business get the benefit of depreciation or no? Students, depreciation is an expenditure, you all agree?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now should the business get the benefit of it or it should not get? Is it allowed or is it disallowed? Depreciation is allowed, right? Depreciation as per
Allowed,
income
ma'am.
is allowed. So if it is 100% allowed, then what is going to happen? There is going to be no treatment or no adjustment in the answer. So this also we will not consider. Why? Because 34,000 is correctly got by giving treatment of 100% depreciation. Next, to GST tax. Now you all tell me, students, then also we need to check depreciation, any further adjustment is given or no. There is no adjustment given, so you can quickly move ahead to the next item. I'm just showing you how you have to analyze line by line, check it with the additional information, and if it is disallowed, if it is not under this particular head, if the act is not allowing this particular expense, then only you need to give adjustment in the answer. Otherwise, you need not give any adjustment in the answer. Now, why is GST paid, students? GST is paid on the goods and services, right? That is provided by a business. Now, whenever any GST tax is being paid, is it relating to the business or he's paying GST on his income, personal income?
Related to business, ma'am.
Very good.
Business, ma'am.
Very good. Now,
Related to
since
business.
it is related to the business, will this expense be allowed or will this expense be disallowed? You all tell me.
Allowed, ma'am.
Very good.
Allowed, ma'am, because it's business.
Very good. If it is allowed, will it have any treatment in our answer? No. We need not show it in our answer because it is 100% allowed and net profit we have derived it correctly by considering this 9,000. Okay. Next. Legal expenses is 8,000. Now, legal expenses are expenses relating to litigation, court, all this, paying to advocates for any business case. Okay. So these are legal expenses. Now, After this, we'll just check the additional information, whether any information is given regarding legal expenses. So legal expenses include 1,000 paid to the advocate in connection with personal case. So out of this 8,000, 1,000 rupees is paid for personal. So tell me, students, whether this entire 8,000 is allowed, or a part of it is allowed, or how much is disallowed?
7,000.
7,000 is allowed and 1,000 is disallowed. So if it is disallowed, means we have to give adjustment in the answer. Is this clear? So students, here, add expenditure disallowed but debited to P&L account. We have completed salaries paid. This we have done, correct? Now, next is legal expenses. How much of legal expenses is disallowed? 1,000. Why are we disallowing this legal expense? Because it is relating to a personal case, and we have clearly seen that any personal expenditure should be disallowed. When I say disallowed, means it should be added back to the net profit. Next, income tax. Now, what is income tax, students? Can you tell me? See, if the expenditure is 100% allowed, don't give any effect in the answer. We have to give only effect to those which are disallowed or wrongly credited or debited under this head. Only that effect is we are supposed to give in the answer in order to derive at the correct net profit. So students, tell me, income tax, it is paid on what? Income tax is a personal. Income tax is your personal tax that you're paying, or it is a business tax that you're paying? Yes, students?
Personal tax, ma'am.
Very good. Income tax, it is personal tax, because income tax you're not only paying on the income that you're generating from business or profession, you're also paying income tax on your capital gains, on your house property, on your income from other sources, if you're working somewhere, on your salary. So income tax is not only paid under the business income, it is paid under the different heads of income also. So this particular expense is to be allowed or disallowed, students? It has to be disallowed. Why? Because income tax is purely not related to the tax that you're paying only on your business or profession. Income tax can be a tax paid on your different 5 heads of income. So we have added back your income tax of 7,000 rupees. Is this clear, students? Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. It is the first sum, so I am going very slow so that you'll understand how to start solving the sums in case of business or profession. From my next sum onwards, I'll go a little fast. Okay. Now to patents purchases. First of all, tell me what is a patent. Is it a asset? Is it a capital expenditure, or is it a revenue expenditure?
Intangible asset.
Very good. It is an intangible asset.
Ma'am.
Yes. Now, if you're purchasing any asset, is it of a capital nature or is it of a revenue nature? When you're purchasing,
Capital nature.
very good, students. It is a capital nature. And just now we have seen that anything which is of capital nature has to be disallowed. Correct? Only revenue expenditures are allowed. Anything that is a capital expenditure is disallowed. So patents being an asset, it has to be disallowed. But now depreciation you charge on assets, or on what you charge depreciation, students?
On assets.
Very good. Now patent is an asset. So
Yes, ma'am.
only depreciation on patents will be allowed, whereas the patents purchases will be disallowed. So so out of this 12,000, we have to remove only the depreciation portion which is allowed, and the remaining, after minusing depreciation, whatever amount is remaining, it has to be disallowed. Now, can you all tell me what is the rate of depreciation as per the Income Tax Act on intangible assets? We have already covered this under our lecture number 18. So in case of, I know you'll have not revised, in case of intangible assets, it is 25% depreciation. So let us see. See here, patents purchases is how much? 12,000. Now entire 12,000 we cannot disallow because depreciation is an allowable expenditure. So what we have done, patents purchases 12,000 less depreciation at the rate of 25% of 12,000, which is 3,000. 3,000 is allowed. Out of 12,000, 3,000 is allowed. So how much is disallowed? 9,000. So that is what? 9,000 we have added back to the net profit because these are expenditures disallowed but debited to the P&L account. Are you all understanding, students? Have you all understood this adjustment of patent purchases? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Next, 2 repairs. Now, first of all, first thing in the business, if there is any repairs, it is 100% allowed. Correct? Now, but we have to see additional information just to understand whether repairs are house repairs or business repairs. So there is no information about repairs given in the problem. So we are taking it as 100% repairs are relating to the business. So tell me, repairs, business repairs, whether it is an allowable expenditure or disallowable expenditure. So any treatment is to be done in the answer, main answer? No. If they are 100% allowed, you need not give any effect in the main answer because effect is already given. Correct effect is already given. Next, donations. Now, is donation an allowable expenditure or disallowable expenditure? Students, donation is something which is not a mandate thing, correct? So it has to be disallowed because businesses may show heavy donations and they may try to reduce their net profit and pay lesser tax. So in order to avoid that, government, the act says that, provision says that donation is a disallowed expenditure. Reason being that it is not some mandate expenditure that a particular organization or a business has to incur. Without donation also, can a business run? Yes. So this expenditure is unnecessary expenditure or maybe an expenditure which is not allowed as per the act because people may show fake donations and they may reduce their net profit and they may pay lesser tax. So this is completely disallowed expenditure. So if it is disallowed, what are we supposed to do? Add this back to the net profit. So we have added donation to the net profit because donations are disallowed. Next, 2 provisions for bad debts, 3,000. Students, we have seen that bad debts, suppose if we know a particular recovery is irrecoverable, okay, we treat it as bad debts and bad debts are allowed. But is provision for bad debts allowed as per the Income Tax Act? No. Is reserve for bad debts allowed? It is not allowed. What is the meaning of provision? That is, we know that a particular expense is going to incur and we keep aside some amount, okay, to meet that particular expenditure. But provision for bad debts or reserve for bad debts are not allowed. If here only it would have been 2 bad debts, then we would have allowed this expenditure. But provision for bad debts is a disallowed expenditure. Let us see whether any information about this is given in the additional information. There is no information given. Therefore, entire 3,000 is disallowed. So you cannot make provision for something which is already, you know, it is bad and it is already irrecoverable in the books of accounts. So making provisions and simply showing it on the debit side of P&L account and simply increasing your expense, showing less net profit and paying lesser tax. So as per the provisions of business and professions, provision for bad debts, or even if it is a reserve for bad debts, it has to be 100% disallowed. Next, to general expenses, 12,000. Now, is general expenses a allowable expenditure or disallowable expenditure?
Allowable.
Allowable. But let us just see whether some additional information is given so that we can back up our answer. So general expenses include 4,000 as contribution to staff welfare fund. Now, is this staff welfare fund a recognized fund, or simply what most of the businesses do, that they show certain expenditures and they simply show that they are contributing to some staff welfare fund, okay, so that they can increase their expenditure and reduce their net profit and they can pay lesser tax. So is this mandate staff welfare fund? It is not mandate, correct? So out of this 12,000, as you all said, it is 100% allowed, agreed. But because there was some point given in the additional information, our answer will now change. Out of 12,000, 4,000 will be disallowed because it is a contribution made to the staff welfare fund, and the remaining general expenses will be allowed. So let us see. General expenses contribution to staff welfare fund, 4,000 is to be added back to the net profit. The remaining general expenses will be allowed, as you all told. So we have completed with the expenses. Correct? We have covered all the expenses and given effect to it. Now let us see the credit side of P&L account and let us understand the credit side of P&L account. So students, by gross profit, obviously gross profit is a trading profit which we derive from the trading account. So yes, this is 100%. You can take this income. Next, by dividend. Now students, you will tell me, is dividend an income under the head profits and gains from business or profession, or it is the income under the head capital gains, or it is the income under the head house property, or under salaries, or income from other sources? So dividend is an income from other sources, provided this particular company is not into the business of dealing in shares, or their business is not into the trading in shares. So students, if Miss Divya is receiving dividend, is it her business income or it is an income from other source?
Income from other source.
If it is an income from other source, should it come in this P&L account of business income? No, it should not come. All the incomes which are taxable under other head should be given effect. Only which incomes are purely relating to business only should be considered. So dividend of 3,000, what are you going to do it? Less incomes chargeable or taxable under some other head. So dividend of 3,000 we are not going to consider under incomes, because why? Because this is an income which is taxable or chargeable under the head income from other sources. Next, rent from house property. Is this a business income?
No, ma'am.
Is it chargeable under the head profits and gains from business or profession? No, it is chargeable under the head income from house property. So we have seen that whatever incomes are not relating to business incomes, you have to less it from the income. So rent from house property also you have to less it. This is nothing but incomes chargeable or taxable under other head. Next, commission. Commission is 10,000. Now we have to see the additional information, whether any information about commission is given. So there is no information about commission given. So commission we treat it as a business income. Suppose if there was a additional information given that commission is given based on the bank commission or some other commission, then we would have decided what call we need to take. But since no information is given, we take commission as a business income. So if it is 100% a business income, no effect of it will come in the P&L account. Next, by brokerage. Brokerage also we consider it as a business income, because by the word we cannot classify it into which set of head of income it belongs to unless we are given some additional information. So there is no additional information about brokerage, and considering brokerage as 100% business income, so we need to tax it as a business income, and therefore no treatment of it will be given in the main answer. By sundry receipts. Tell me students, is this a business income? Students, sundry receipts means miscellaneous incomes that you're getting from your business. So is it a business income?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So if it is 100% business income, are you supposed to give effect to the in the P&L account? No, because already correct effect is given. Only we need to give effect to those which are disallowed, which are taxable under other head, which are not allowed as per the provisions. Next, by the share of income from HUF, means Ms. Divya is in an HUF, and from that HUF she is getting a share of income of 3,000. So is 3,000 her income, her business income, or she is receiving from some HUF, like her HUF that is set up, she is receiving her share of profit from HUF. So is it her business income or income from other source? Students, I'm asking you all, Ms. Divya is receiving her share of profit from HUF. Like she's having her own business and profession, but she's receiving her share from HUF also, Hindu Undivided Family. She's receiving a share of profit or income, which she's shown on the credit side of a P&L account. Now, is this a business income, what she's carrying out? Is she's receiving from the business that she's carrying out, or is she's receiving from an HUF? Is it a business income or is it an income from other source? Students?
Income from other source, ma'am.
Very good. It is income from other source. Therefore, we have to give effect to this since it is not a business income. Therefore, in our main answer, we have deducted this by, what is the reason? The reason is it is income chargeable or taxable under other head. So what we have to do is take the net profit as per P&L account. We have to add all these expenditures which are disallowed but debited to P&L account. Take the total of all this in the outer column, that is 32,000. Add this both. Why we are supposed to add? Because all these are expenditures disallowed but debited in P&L account. So once you add 34,000 plus 32,000, you get 66,000. To this you have deducted incomes chargeable or taxable under other head, 15,000. So therefore you get the correct income from business or correct profit and gain from business. Why I have not written a profession? Because Ms. Divya is carrying out a business. So you can write profits and gains from business. This is the correct 51,000 is the correct gain that she's getting from the business, and not 34,000, because 34,000 includes all disallowed expenditures also and incomes which are chargeable under other head also. Therefore, we have given correct treatment, and we have found out the correct profit on which Ms. Divya should be charged income tax. So have you all understood the first sum, students? Students, is this problem clear? Students?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So now, since we are already done with the time, so the remaining problems we'll do it in the next class. But remember, students, step by step, keeping an eye on the additional information, You need to solve the problem, analyze it, whether it is business income, non-business income, business expenditure, non-business expenditure, give the treatment, okay, to derive at the correct net profit from business or profession. So step by step, if you go, you will not miss out on anything. Just if you start solving without going line wise, you may have confusions. So the remaining part of it, we will cover it in the remaining problems. We will cover it in our next class. Thank you so much, students.